So today I'm going to be showing you how to draw a portrait from a reference photo onto another piece of paper. What you'll need for this is your reference photo. You'll need a separate sheet to create your final picture. You'll need a ruler, and you'll also need a pencil with a good eraser or another eraser aside from your pencil. So let's get started. We're going to start by looking just at the reference photo because this is what's going to give us all of our information. So what I first want to do is measure how many inches each side of the reference photo is. So right now I see about 8 inches. So I'm just going to make some marks where each inch is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's about it. So now we've established that our reference photo is 4 inches going up and down and 8 inches going left to right. So 4 by 8 is how big our original photo is. There are a couple good things that you can use grid drawing for, but one of the main things is to scale something up or to make something bigger. So if I wanted to double the size of this photo, I could double it using this number, and I'm going to show you how to do that after I create my grid on the top of my reference photo. So I'm going to create a grid on the top of this photo using all of these marks that I've made. Now, to do the up and down lines, I am going to turn it to the side. And I do want to zoom in and show you how I kind of create really straight lines. I know that the line of the edge of my paper is straight. And I know that the line of the edge of this reference photo is straight. And if I also know that the lines of my ruler are straight, if I line up the edge of my paper or my reference photo with the edge of this photo and the ruler, and then I line it up with that mark that I made, I should be able to make a pretty straight line. Okay, see how that is? So I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of this side, and then I'm going to move on to the other side. See how straight the lines going up and down are. That's using that sort of tip that I gave you. So I'm going to do the same thing to this side. I'm going to make sure that at least one of the lines of my ruler is in line with the edge of this photo. So now we have our grid over our reference photo. It is a 4 by 8 grid. That means each one of these blocks that you see, each one of these squares is an inch. 1 inch by 1 inch, and there's 8 inches. There's 8 blocks across and 4 blocks up and down. Now, once you have your grid, you can look at your photo and say, okay, I don't really need maybe this space because we know that this is negative space, and we might not want to include that in our final photo. So if you at this point want to cut off any excess, like this side maybe, or even an edge that's not a full inch, like this one for example, I am not going to add this little, I guess it's maybe half of an inch about 1/4 of an inch. I'm not going to add this to my my drawing. You could even cut that off if it helps you. Before we move on to drawing, I do want to get into this number. So this number, like I said, tells you how the measurements of your reference photo. So this is 4 going up and down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 8 across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Now, we have a couple options. We can transfer the exact same size of the photo onto this paper, which is probably what we're going to do because this copy paper is only 8.5 by 11. But I do want to explain to you what the process would look like if you were going to double or triple this number. So, it requires a little bit of math. So, if my photo is 4 by 8, and I want to double it. Let's say I want to multiply it by 2. So I'm doubling this number. It would be 12 by 16. Now, this number right here is how large your grid will be, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be 12 boxes up and down and 16 boxes across, because that's not going to help you. This is your original number, 4 boxes by 8 boxes, and that's the number you need to stick with. So, what this means, you really have to look at whatever you multiplied it by. So whatever number you multiplied to get this number, that's how many inches each box is going to be. So, where your 4 by 8 was 1 inch. So I'm going to show you how big your boxes were on your reference photo. Okay? This is how big your boxes are on your reference photo. If you wanted to use this number, you would just have to do each box 2 inches. You're always going to end up with 4 boxes by 8 boxes, or whatever your measurement is from your reference photo. So because these boxes are doubling in size, you're still going to have 4 boxes across, 8 boxes up and down, or whatever you have. The next step is to create a grid that is the same as or equal to your reference photo. So I'm going to choose the same exact size, which is going to be 4 by 8. But like I said, you could double it. You could even triple it if you wanted to, depending on the size of your paper. So I know that I'm going to want my grid on this side to be 4 boxes up and down and 8 boxes across. So I'm just going to make that mark for myself. I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit so you can see. So now I'm going to measure 4 by 8. There are my marks for my grid, and now I'm just going to go in and make my lines, making sure that my lines are as straight as they can possibly be. Now I have my grid that I want to use, and then I also have now my reference photo. Let's see if I can get them both in there. Nope. Okay. At this point, if you're screaming in your head and you're like, "This is too many boxes for me, I can't do it," a good tip to help you sort of stay on track with where each thing is going, you can actually number your boxes. So you could number your grid. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you could do the same for your photo. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just using the space that I'm not going to be using for my grid, because this doesn't have anything to do with my grid. I just accidentally made an extra box, so it's a good place to put your numbers. So this could easily help you sort of guide you through the process. Okay, so the next part to this is actually transferring that original photo onto your grid. So the way that I do it is I'll always start at the top left corner of whatever I'm drawing, and then I make sure to kind of go around and create that contour or outline of the drawing. And that kind of gives me a good point of where everything is going to go. So a couple things I would say when starting this. The very first thing is to draw as lightly as you possibly can. That is because if you see how dark my grid is, if I try to erase this grid, you're still going to see some of it left over. So drawing lightly is going to help you if you do make a mistake and something is out of proportion, and you're able to fix that. The next thing is to go slow, because if one thing gets off of track, everything's going to end up being off track. So if you eliminate that problem and erase as you go, that's going to make your life a lot easier, and it's going to make the picture a lot nicer. Okay? So I can kind of see that my drawing, the little part of her hair, starts at 1 going up and down, and then 3 going across. So if I go to 1 and 3, that's the box I'm going to be starting in. And so her hair kind of, if you look at it, it's about a pinky's length from the box. So I'm just going to make a little mark right there. And that tells me where I'm going to start. And her hair goes up and curves a little bit in sort of a diagonal motion. And then in box 4, it's going to continue to go up. And it actually ends up going off the page. Okay? So that's all I'm going to draw right there. Then I'm going to come over to 1 and 6. So right here. And that's where I sort of start to see it going back down. So it starts really close to the edge and curves and goes down. And the reason I was describing it to you is because that's what helps me draw. If I can describe something, chances are if I can describe something in terms of lines and shapes, chances are I'm going to be able to draw it. Because for the most part, we can all really draw lines and shapes. And that's really all observational drawing is. That's where I stopped, is right here. So I'm going to come back down over to this side and finish out the other side of her hair. That That's kind of where her hair is for me. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw the inside. And now I'm going to go ahead and start drawing the inside of her face. Now, follow the lines. Follow the above her eyelid, below her eyelid, around the eye. Follow these lines that the nose makes, and that's going to help you create more of an accurate portrait. So I'm going to show you how I sort of create the different parts of the face. So there's that first eye, and I am just going to move straight on down to her nose. And something I just did, I feel like I've drawn this pretty accurate or pretty close to what it actually is. So what I am doing is I am going and just giving myself some guidelines of where I want my other eye to be, just so that way I don't end up doing one correct and then having one completely off. Okay, so that's kind of where I landed with the outline of everything. As you can see, it is not exact by any means. It's not. There are things that I can see that need to be fixed. For example, right here, the space between her eyes should be over just a smidge more. Things like that need to be changed. And I can work on this. I work on this for a long time, trying to fix everything. But I think you kind of get the idea of how grid drawing, the process of it goes.